North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. What do? We report the news here, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is not news. No, that's just opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. By the way, agreement with the host is not required, nor is it even hoped for. So join us. You can find us everywhere: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Patreon. And you can take part in this broadcast as you see fit, and I certainly hope you do. Tragedy this morning. 2 people were killed, 5 others injured yesterday after a suspect opened fire near a Virginia Commonwealth University following a high school graduation ceremony. VCU police said the shooting occurred about 5:13 p.m. in the area of Monroe Park near the campus's Altria Theater after a recently concluded graduation ceremony from Huguenot High School. One of the victims killed was an 18-year-old male who had just graduated. Another was a 36-year-old male, according to police. Names not released. Police believe the suspect knew at least one of the victims. Richmond police said 5 others suffered various other degrees of injuries. And hang on just 2 shakes. Sorry about that. I had to take that phone call for another reason that has absolutely nothing to do with the broadcast. Let's move on. So, Richmond police said 5 others suffered various degrees of injuries. 2 people were treated for falls. 1 juvenile was struck by a car and sustained injuries that were not life-threatening. 9 people were treated at the scene for minor injuries or anxieties. Police also said a 19-year-old who was in custody will be charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. Police recovered multiple handguns. No further details were given about the victims' ages or the identity of the suspects. Richmond Public Schools said Thomas Jefferson High School canceled a graduation ceremony planned for yesterday evening. The ceremony will be rescheduled. School board member Jonathan Young told Richmond TV station WWBT that graduates and other attendees were exiting the theater when they heard about 20 gunshots in rapid succession. That prompted, as you might expect, hundreds of persons to make an effort to flee the gunfire to return to the building. Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney called the shooting traumatic for everyone, especially the youth involved. And then he said this, quote, "Is nothing sacred any longer? We're going to do everything we can to bring the individuals who were involved in this to justice, not just for the families involved, but also for the city," said Stoney. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin said his administration was monitoring the terrible shooting and that state law enforcement is providing support to the Richmond Police Department. Police said there is no ongoing threat to the community, but a heavy police presence remains at Monroe Park. Richmond police are leading the investigation. 2 killed, others injured. Another school shooting. And once again, we still don't know exactly who the shooters are. And I believe that we have, as a society, the need to make a very serious determination about what we're going to do with firearms attacks on our children. This person theoretically is being charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. I believe that should be capital murder, and that should lead to a death sentence. Period. And it should be very quick. It shouldn't take a whole lot of time. They have a pretty good idea who the guy is. Get the guy a really good lawyer. Get a jury of his peers, put it all together, have a trial, take the jury verdict, and then from there, make a sentence of death. have one appeal to make sure that were no procedural errors. And once that's over, the governor, Glenn Youngkin, should issue a death warrant, and 60 days later, it should be over. Simple, basic, done. None of us believe that our schools should be shooting galleries. None of us believe that our children are being properly cared for from a standpoint of security in their own schools. A lot of this had to do with the fact that the politics of the day mandated that there be some kind of a safety zone where no guns could ever be allowed to be in. Well, what that did was create a soft target that has been exploited time and time and time again. Now, there is no reason for our children not to be safe in their schools. None. In Texas, and I happen to know this for a fact because I speak to them on a regular basis, teachers can be armed and they can take action after proper training. Now, make no mistake. If they're in a situation where they, God forbid, ever have to use the training that they work so hard on, and I see it for myself, if they have to use that, there's going to be big legal trouble for them. Big legal trouble. Will it end in their conviction, etc.? Gosh, I hope not. Should it be engaged in? Absolutely. It absolutely should be. But these are the responsibilities that these people are willing to shoulder in order to keep children safe. These shootings should end very, very quickly with the incapacitation of the shooter without any kind of crazy Monday morning quarterbacking. Now, reasonable Monday morning quarterbacking is fine. But unreasonable, silly Monday morning quarterbacking, that's got to stop. What we have to do is we have to realize that it's more important to protect our children than it is to play politics with our children. And you've seen how difficult that can be. Where's the FBI on this? They don't have any problem going after, I don't know. They don't have any problem going after parents at school board meetings. Let's see what they can do about finding out exactly how this person came up with the weapon. It's illegal for a juvenile, someone under the age of 21, to purchase a handgun. How did he have it? Whoever's responsible for that, or accessories after the fact or before the fact to the murder of two people, they should go to jail too. Common sense gun law is not rendering the rest of us completely defenseless. Common sense gun law is to harshly treat those people who use guns in crime. Harshly. And I'm talking about the death penalty. Should there be an extra specification for people who attack children at a school event? Absolutely. Absolutely. You're not going to keep these people away from schools until you make it an absolute death sentence. And that's what you have to do. You simply have to decide that our children's safety is more important than perhaps the unfortunate background of the poor shooter that killed a bunch of people at a school somewhere. Well, he came from a broken home. He came from this. He had this particular affliction, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry. Bye-bye now. You're gone. You're absolutely gone. Isaac asked, I thought you had to be 18 years of age to purchase a handgun. Nope, you've got to be 21. You have to be 21. So why is a 19-year-old carrying around a handgun? See, this is what we need to do. Instead of sitting around coming up with ways to damage the entire populace, or virtually the entire populace, based on the actions of a few, we need to go after the few. And we need to make it abundantly clear that society will not tolerate any of this. None of it. Let's say, for example, I don't know. Let's say, for example, there were weapons around the house where this kid grew up. And let's say, for example, the weapon was owned by the parents. And let's say, for example, the kid took the weapon and shot up a graduation ceremony. The parents are legally liable, and they should face significant jail time, a felony conviction. And that is all. You don't have to mandate that people have gun locks. You don't have to mandate that people have a secure place for their weapons. What you have to do is you have to say, okay, look, if your kid takes the weapon to school and shoots the place up, you're going to prison. And let the people make their own decisions. That's America. As often as I've said this, it still doesn't quite penetrate, does it? The people who were killed last night or yesterday afternoon in Virginia were doing exactly what the anti-gun lobby wants all of us to do. Stand helpless before a gunman. That's what they want all of us to do. And that is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Is there common sense gun law? Sure there is. Sure there is. Use a gun in the commission of a crime. Any crime. Use a weapon in the commission of a crime. The sentence starts at 25 years to life. And all this will stop. All of it. Hold people responsible for the actions of this microscopic portion of our population that believe that they can settle their differences with a gun. Instead of trying to punish the rest of us and render us all defenseless, not just before these people who believe that they can settle their differences with a gun, but before a government that apparently wants to do anything to be able to maintain political power. We have to get a hold of this. And if the people that are running the show, the people that are enforcing the law, the people that are prosecuting crime, if they're not up to the job, replace them. Replace them forthwith. We have laws in Texas to do exactly that. Exactly that. It's time to stop playing around with this garbage and start solving these problems, don't you think? Another shooting at a school function. The charge? Second-degree murder? Second-degree murder times 2. Really? I think that's ridiculous. If there is not a law on the books in Virginia that says, yeah, any murder at a school perpetrated by someone who is an attacker, if that doesn't equal capital murder, then that law needs to be enacted, signed by the governor, put in the books immediately. We need to stop playing around with this. We need people that are looking for solutions, not political footballs. It's time to stop messing around. Or it's time for all of us to homeschool our kids. What do you think? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. I've gotten an update from somebody who would know on how you can purchase a weapon. Federal law, 21 to purchase from a licensed seller. Private sales can be 18. 18 can possess a handgun. That's somebody that would know. In the state of Texas, I don't know whether that's federal law. I don't know whether or not that exists in Texas. I don't think we can't even sell. I work at a gun store. We can't sell ammunition to someone under the age of 21. We can't sell ammunition. Okay, so we certainly wouldn't sell a handgun to anybody under 21. And I think that's Texas law. We'll check on that and get back to you. We have a portion of the press conference from the shooting yesterday by the police agencies involved. Let's take a look at a little bit of that.
A few questions here. I'm not going to be able to give a lot more detail than I've already provided, but I can answer a few.
Chief, could you talk about the expansiveness of the crime scenes here and what we're seeing with a lot of police debuff kind of in many blocks of this area?
Yes. Well, it obviously is a large scene. We always start out larger than we need and then bring it back. We anticipate we will be breaking down this crime scene within the next 20 or 30 minutes. Our forensic technicians have completed much of their work. They're recanvassing. We have canines looking for additional firearms and casings in case we missed any, but we feel pretty good about where we are forensically at this time. We anticipate breaking much of this down very shortly.
Can you ID the deceased, or if not, if their ages at least?
The two deceased are an 18-year-old male and a 36-year-old male. We are not prepared to release the names at this point, but we will in days to come. The families are obviously grieving at this point. They have been notified. That was a hang-up for us initially, but we'd like to, before we release those names, we'd like to give them a bit of time to grieve.
Chief, any idea on motive at this point? Why would somebody do this?
We think the suspect knew at least one of the victims.
Do you know the gender of the suspect and student?
The 19-year-old suspect is a male. And I'm unclear if he's currently a student.
Do you know, do you provide information on the type of weapon used?
We've recovered handguns in this case.
Multiple?
Yes.
Chief, the 18-year-old that was the 18-year-old that you listed that was shot, is that a student like graduating today?
Yes.
The victim is in his 30s. Can you speak to, is that a family member of one of the graduates?
He was here for the graduation. We'll be releasing more of that tomorrow.
All right, so you can see that there was that was very early on in the investigation. There is some other information regarding this, having to do with a report from 6 News in Richmond, Virginia. Let me get to that here very quickly. Sean Jackson, his father Renzo Smith, were the victims. Someone opened fire in Monroe Park following the Huguenot High School's graduation ceremony at the Altria Theater in Richmond, Virginia. Community advocate Charles Willis, who runs the group United Communities Against Crime, released the slain victims' names and their photos on behalf of the grieving family. The family asked the Richmond community keep them in their prayers. We should all do that. By the way, according to the source that I have that would know everything there is to know about all of this stuff, it's 21 to purchase from a gun store, 18 to purchase from private sellers, that's a handgun, 18 to possess, and 18 to get a license to carry. All right. So apparently there is work to do here in Texas if you believe that that is the issue that we should pursue. I'm not sure it should be, but we got to do something here that is punishing the perpetrators instead of everybody else. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. They're not jammy pants, they're lounging clothes, Christy. Well, that's funny. Welcome to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Yeah, I don't exactly Oh, now I know. Okay, now I figured out that that particular technical glitch. Okay, let's get back to the news. Let's go back to some of the things that we have here. Let's go back to the chat room. It's a tragedy we have so many veterans and civilians who live on the streets. It's a tough thing to find a solution to. Some mental hospitals were horrible. That's true. Let's see. Based on the video, Isaac Tate, a friend of the broadcast, says, based on the video, it seems like the shooter was outside the venue, waited for the conclusion of the graduation. Well, we'll see. And so on. So there are other pieces of news, and some of them are very important. I hate to move away from this, but we must. There is a manipulation, a warpage, a twisting, a distortion of American news reporting. Most of us who have been around the game for a very, very long time understand that that is, for all intents and purposes, political. As I've said many times on this broadcast, it is my firm belief, my opinion, that politics poisons everything. And the dissemination of news in the United States, deregulated first by Reagan, then by President Clinton, has led to a circumstance where the news is more propaganda / public relations than reality. News must be reality. That's how a healthy society is able to make healthy decisions. Chris Licht was someone who believed the same thing. He has now decided to step away or was fired from CNN. This is big news in the media world, a little bit of shop talk today. But it's also bigger from a standpoint of the national imperative based on the Constitution, Bill of Rights, etc. The most important of those rights, freedom of speech and a free press. CNN is looking for another captain. This is how USA Today reports it. Chris Licht, the embattled CEO of the cable news network, is out of the company effective immediately. The news, first reported by trade publication Puck, confirmed by CNN's parent organization, Warner Brothers Discovery, comes 5 days after Licht was the subject of a devastating profile in The Atlantic. The 15,000-word article portrayed him as an ineffectual leader presiding over a meltdown at the news organization, including a widely criticized town hall featuring former President Donald Trump, plummeting ratings and crashing morale among top anchors and correspondents. Licht took the reins of CNN last year after the company's then parent company, Warner Media, merged with Discovery. The new company made swift changes at the network, immediately shuttering CNN Plus, the streaming service that had launched only a month earlier, laying off hundreds of workers, announcing plans to cut back on non-news programming. Licht, appointed by CEO David Zaslav, arrived with a mandate to make CNN more of a middle-of-the-road news outlet in its coverage, which many interpreted as more right-wing. In the Atlantic profile, Licht wavers about the mission of CNN and the definition of absolute truth. See, I've got some comments on that. Truth. Truth is something that has been a cornerstone of the Wells Report for its entire run. But truth, like everything else, mainly due to politics, but other things, can be twisted and warped and distorted for the sake of those politics. We know that to be true. Truth is elusive insofar as truth is one of those things that exists in the eyes of the beholder. And so when I come to this venue, this studio, I look as clearly toward truth as I possibly can and report it. I do that by going to innumerable outlets and trying to coalesce the reporting that I give you into something that is worthy of your time, attention, and indeed consideration. I've never told you what to think. I never will. All I want to do is bring you fact. It's hard. It's hard. Sifting through a news article just to find the fact is difficult. And when I say news, it's always in quotation marks these days, because depending on what news outlet is covering any given story, the slant, the editorialization of that reporting can lead to magnificently different renditions and reporting of the exact same situation, the exact same event. And that means that depending on what news outlets you read, you will get different versions of the story. As I said, I try to coalesce all those things. Fact is close to truth. It's closer to truth than anything else. And it's difficult. It shouldn't be. The facts are simple. Journalism dictates that what you do is report who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, they talk a little bit in this USA Today article about Chris Licht presiding over a meltdown at CNN. Well, that is not necessarily his fault. The meltdown at CNN occurred when Jeff Zucker took over the organization and took it hard left. It became a propaganda portal for the Democrat National Committee and progressives and leftists all across the world, in fact. And the erosion of their ratings finally led to the ouster of Jeff Zucker. The only thing to do was something that Chris Licht tried, and that was to return CNN to a fact-based news organization that was bent on reporting the facts. Now, when you do something like that, what you do is, in the Zucker era, most people that looked at CNN as a news outlet and realized they were being propagandized simply left. The erosion of their ratings. That left this hardcore group of people that were there to consume leftist propaganda. When Chris Licht took over and started changing things around to go back to a more fact-based organization, they lost that audience too. And so that is something that should have been absolutely anticipated by David Laszlo, Chris Licht's boss. And it's going to take a long time for CNN to return to any shred of credibility with the people of the United States, based on the damage that was done by Jeff Zucker. Now, I don't know where CNN is going to go. I don't have any idea. I don't believe in nonprofit news. Look at what happened to NPR. Nonprofit news is essentially devoid of any kind of accountability from a standpoint of viewership. So I believe that viewers are important. But in that viewership, especially in a news organization, that viewership has got to be built through a trust from those viewers, from those consumers, and that can only lead to reporting the facts. Sure, you can opine. I do that myself. I do that. And I make it abundantly clear that I'm doing that. When I'm reporting the news, I report from here. I tell you what's going on. By the way, in case you're wondering, I can do a little bit of news reporting in a staff meeting yesterday, earlier today, as it turns out. Zaslav told CNN employees, I met with Chris and he'll be leaving CNN for a number of reasons. Things didn't work out, and that's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And ultimately, that's on me. I take full responsibility for that, but now we begin a new page. This is an extraordinary organization. He said it will take several months to install a permanent leadership team. Until then, an interim replacement team includes Amy Antelis, a longtime CNN executive who oversaw CNN Films, Virginia Mosley, EVP of Editorial, Executive Vice President of Editorial, Eric Sherling, Executive VP of U.S. Programming, David Levy, who was named Chief Operating Officer last Thursday, will continue to oversee business operations. So when I report news, I do it this way. But when I opine, I come here. I want you to know that when I'm making opinion, there is a difference in the way we report this. And so that is not difficult. Certainly not for CNN. Certainly not for Fox News. Certainly not for any of these news organizations. But the clear differentiation between news and editorial comment must return to American media so that the people of the United States have some way of separating fact from fancy. This is basic. This is simple. There's another rubric here that we've got to keep in mind. And it's something that I have to bring up based on the fact that the American news media is political. Was Chris Licht's departure from CNN a political decision or a business one? As I said, Mr. Zaslav should have known that there would be a crash in ratings, trying to change CNN into a credible and worthy news source for the American people and beyond. He should have known that this was going to be difficult. He should have known that, and in this story, it references news anchors and their morale. Well, there's a thing called being professional. That professional standing, the ability to do your job, is something that circumvents whether or not you feel good about it. If you don't feel good about doing your job, step away. Shepard Smith did that at Fox News. Is Shepard Smith a straight down the center news reporter? I don't know. I'm not so sure. I used to be, but I'm not so sure. But he stepped away because he didn't want to remain at Fox News. That's the decision that these anchors that are suffering morale issues must keep in mind. They're professionals. If you do not believe that staying where you are is the right thing for you, then you step away. You don't make a big deal about it. You just say, well, things, we developed a divergent course. The company went one way, I went another way based on this and that and such and so. But if there is a political motive behind the removal of Chris Licht, if that is indeed the case, then American news is not ever going to recover until that becomes a disastrous policy of the past. Now, I don't know who's going to take over. We have this leadership team in place. Okay. But once again, being preached at is not being reported. The news preaching is not news reporting. And we must be able to differentiate between the two. And I don't know so much about any of the people that are now in charge at CNN, but it looks as though that they have separated the actual news operations from the business operations, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Because that push-pull of revenue versus reporting is good for each side, up to a point. If a political motive is the reason for Chris Licht's departure, then the only turn is back to the Jeff Zucker days, which may indeed rehabilitate these leftist news consumers. That was the basis of their news reporting. But that is not a long-term solution. That will give them an audience that is minuscule in comparison to their competitors. And that audience is not going to be sustainable because politics will change. And so here we are looking at all of this and wondering, okay, what's the next thing? Where will CNN go next? We'll all find out. Now, I've talked about CNN. What about Fox News? Fox News went down this road too. We'll talk about that when we return here on the Wells Report. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Welcome to this Wednesday, June 7th, year of our Lord 2023. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. And so, we've been talking about CNN. Chris Licht is now out effective immediately as the primary head of that news organization. And so, why is he out? Is it because of ratings and revenue, or is it because of politics? We really don't know. We do know that politics has been infused into the American news effort from one end of it to the other. There is no non-political news. People will say, for example, that this particular broadcast is partisan. It is not. Well, it is, but it's partisan to the Constitution and Bill of Rights of the United States. If somebody thinks this show is partisan because I support the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, then what does that say about where this news is and where this country is? I stand for the Constitution of the United States. I stand for the Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights includes a free press. Now, there are several versions of the free press. Tabloids are a part of the free press. Sensationalist news, propaganda, it's all part of the free press. But when it comes down to actual reporting of the news, that has to have its own category. It has to be factual. It has to be devoid of opinion, unless the person reporting the news differentiates between that news and opinion. I told you how I do it. But this political impact on news is, as I said, it affects everybody. Well, what about Fox News? Well, Fox News started hiring a whole bunch of politicians. They're on the air as anchors to this day. Why? Well, because they're playing politics, that's why. Just because you might agree with those politics doesn't mean that it's right. And just because people who watch CNN because of their politics doesn't mean that they're wrong. What it means is that people will choose the news outlets that comfort them the most, especially in hard times. And that's where we are. We are in hard times here in this country. But the greatest way to alleviate hard times is fact and truth. And that is all. Famously, Fox News put Paul Ryan, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, neocon, arch-Republican, on the board of directors. When that happened, there was a perceptible change in Fox News programming. Was it less biased? No. Did the bias change? Yes. Yes. The willingness, say, for example, for Fox News to deride Donald Trump as the de facto leader of the Republican movement in the United States, well, that's nothing better than CNN. That's nothing better than CNN. You report the story honestly. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When Donald Trump goes someplace, tens of thousands of people show up. You have seen the stadiums and so on and so on. Hillary Clinton goes someplace, and what you see are photoshopped pictures of people that have been added to a shot to make it look like there are a lot of people hanging around. These news outlets were caught red-handed doing that. When Joe Biden was campaigning in 2020, he stood on a stage. You saw Joe Biden on a stage, and you heard car horns because it was the COVID era, and so you couldn't get a whole bunch of people together. Did you ever see the number of cars that were honking their horns? No. No, you didn't. How many were there? You don't know. You should know. If there were 20 cars in the parking lot, that's not tens of thousands of people in an arena. So what are we doing? Is that news? No. No, that's an infomercial. And that's completely different. We, the people of the United States, are ill-served by our media. And you know that because you're here. I'm just a guy sitting in a studio in my house in very lovely lounging pants, I might say, telling you the news that I see, reporting it to you honestly and fairly, and opining, with the caveat that you can opine differently and we can debate. I have a readout right here of what people say on the chat room on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. If, by the way, you're watching Patreon or Rumble, stop snickering about my lounging pants and send me an email. Send it to thewellsreport@frontier.com. The Wells Report at frontier.com. In the subject line, put the platform that you're watching in all caps. I will answer those emails. I absolutely will. And so, Chris Licht out at CNN. I tweeted earlier today because this is breaking news. This happened this morning. I tweeted out on Twitter today. He tried. Now, is this ratings and revenue on the part of Discovery? Or is this a political move designed to perpetuate propaganda disguised as news? Well, we'll see. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back with more in just a couple of minutes. Hour number 2 is right around the corner. Stay where you are. Thanks for listening to the Wells Report, more of which continues in 6 minutes. You found the Wells Report, more of which continues in 5 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is only opinion. It is not news. And that opinion is yours, and that is opinion of myself, and we come together for debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. In my life as an adult in the United States, I have seen a change in our country. We all have. And it's not just particular to us. Our country has changed since its inception, throughout the years, and indeed centuries. It's a good thing. Stagnation is always terrible. If stagnation is the future of this nation, then, which is exactly what happened to the Roman Empire, which was conceived as a republic. If that is indeed what happens, then we can and will suffer the same fate as the Roman Empire. People will just stop caring. The way you get people to stop caring is to spend an awful lot of time lying to them. And so they retreat into their own homes and their own silos. Cohesion is a society phrase until eventually it completely disappears. Now, that's not necessarily a disappearance into anarchy, although it can happen. The Roman Empire ended because people just got tired of it. And they did something else. And people split. And that division is what we are dealing with here in the United States, not because people don't care any longer, but because people are being torn asunder. In the United States, we have adopted, which I believe isn't necessarily the right thing, an absolute two-party system. Republicans and Democrats. And what we have is we have those people with their ideas and the people who coalesce around those ideas. Okay, that's all right. You can't avoid it. People will clump together. That's just the way it is. Ping? What, Renwee? What's going on? Mike Renwee, who is a stalwart friend of the Wells Report, just messaged me YouTube comments are not appearing on the tote board, just FYI. Okay, thanks much. Don't know why. Don't know why, but I'll chase it. That being said, let's find out. I'll have to go. I wonder if I've been suspended again by YouTube. Let's find out. We'll find out during the break, and I'll let you know. That being said, so we have this two-party system, and because of the two-party system and the fact that they have held power for a very long time, they have made it almost impossible for other parties to form and provide competition. And as I've said time and time again, competition is the crucible of excellence. Because people will come up with better ideas. I came up with better ideas, and while I'm on the forefront of a lot of those ideas, one of those that probably is the most basic and I think important is this. The idea that the Republican Party is the best way to express conservative thought in the United States is specious. It's inaccurate. It's destructive. I am someone who believes in the conservative party of the United States. There is a conservative party of the United States. You've never heard of it. The reason is because there are so many roadblocks in actually making something like that burgeon and move forward that it's nearly impossible. You have to coalesce behind someone, and I keep using the word coalesce. I don't know. It's stuck in my mind. It's like an earworm where you think of a song and you can't get it out of your head for the rest of the day. Anyway, people are trying to figure out there has to be a better way for conservatives to have their say in these United States. The Conservative Party would be it if it wasn't for the fact that it's nearly impossible to be able to put all that stuff together based on the fact that Republicans and Democrats have rigged the game. And that's bipartisan, by the way. And when you distance yourself from the will of the people in those parties, then just like what we've been discussing with CNN and all manner of other things, people will simply leave. They vote with their feet and they walk away. And so I'm no longer a Republican. I haven't been for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, I fired the Republican Party twice. I doubt very sincerely that I'm ever going to ever do that again, ever join that party again. Because they don't do anything. And what's infuriating about the Republican Party is they continually find ways to lose. And that's happening as we have this conversation. In the person and persons of people running for the presidency of the United States and the news coverage that covers those people. The Republican Party is, and I've said this time and time again, a band of losers. I'm not talking about you if you're a Republican. I'm talking about your Republican Party leadership. They're losers. They like to lose. And so what they do is they find ways to do it. Let me give you an example. Chris Christie has decided that he is going to run for the presidency in 2024, the Republican nomination. And USA Today starts it out like this. Chris Christie thinks someone has to take down Donald Trump, and he's the one to do it. The former New Jersey governor has long been mulling a second presidential campaign, made it official last night in New Hampshire during a town hall at St. Anselm College, not only vowing to defeat the former president, but to take the 2024 Republican nomination for himself. Quote, I can't guarantee you success in what I'm about to do, but I guarantee you at the end of it, you will have no doubt, in my mind who I am and what I stand for and whether I deserve it. Chris, it's not about you. That's an opinion. It's not about you. You will have no doubt in my mind. I'm sure what he did was he was attempting to say you'll have no doubt in your mind where he stands, but that's probably just a mental glitch. Christie said he referenced a letter from founding father John Adams to his wife Abigail. That's why I came back to New Hampshire to tell all of you that I intend to seek the Republican nomination for president in 2024. Christie framed the country as a nation which experienced countless failures in leadership, casting blame on former President Barack Obama, President Trump, President Joe Biden for making the United States smaller and dividing Americans. Make no mistake, Chris Christie is a serious politician and a serious leader. He says some good things here. I've watched our country over the last decade, which seems to be getting smaller and smaller, smaller in every way, smaller in the way we talk to each other, smaller in the way we look at each other, smaller in the things that we talk to each other about, smaller in the issues that we care about enough to get angry about. And I thought to myself, he continued, why do I continue to get this feeling for that America, for the first time in its history, is getting smaller? And I've concluded we've had leaders who have led us to being small. Christie's campaign will be largely focused on New Hampshire, a risky strategy considering the state rejected him in 2016, delivering a killing blow to his last White House bid. It's a disappointing performance that Christie now takes in stride. I've lost. You people told me that in 2016, all of you. Christie is actually his actual quote is this: I've lost. You people did that to me in 2016. This guy's focused on himself, isn't he? You guys did that to me. No, my policies weren't correct, and you chose someone else. That's how you say it, Mr. Christie. You don't, again, blame other people for your shortcomings. You simply don't. Christie's entering a crowded Republican presidential field with Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis leading the pack, dominating the headlines. Other candidates include the likes of former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. Former Vice President Mike Pence has also thrown his hat into the ring. We'll talk about him in a moment. So he says, I'm going to fight back. And he's going to do what he can to make America something that is larger, not smaller. While most of the 2024 candidates have expressed hesitancy to go after Trump, Christie made it no secret he has no reservations about attacking the former president. I don't have any problem with that either. A competition is the crucible of excellence. In fact, a large part of his campaign will center on taking out Trump. Here's what he had to say. He referred to President Trump as a lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog, and he is not a leader. If there were any question of whether Chris Christie was referring to the former president in his announcement speech, he dispelled any assumptions. Let me be clear in the case I've not been already. The person I'm talking about, who is obsessed with the mirror, who never admits a mistake, who never admits a fault, who always finds someone else, who finds somebody else to blame for something that goes wrong, but finds every reason to take credit for anything that goes right, is Donald Trump. The former New Jersey governor has been working to be a presidential candidate, and he has hosted town halls in New Hampshire. It's not only about defeating Trump, says USA Today. Christie has repeatedly said he would only run if he truly believed he had a chance of winning. How are those two things mutually exclusive? Let me be very clear. I'm going out there to take out Donald Trump, but here's why. I want to win. Me. I. Pot, meet kettle. And that's the problem with Chris Christie. As he reports that Donald Trump is self-consumed and so on, he's talking about himself. Chris Christie is a fine man. I've met him personally. He's a fine man. I have no problems with him whatsoever, but let me tell you, Chris Christie is about Chris Christie. And by the way, once again, does Chris Christie's voice need to be in this debate? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I will point out something that is essential to this discussion. Here it is. As I started this segment by saying that the Republican Party finds ways to lose, they're doing it again. When Donald Trump was elected in 2016, the entire Republican establishment got fired by the people of the United States. In the 2020 election, they reinforced that message with 74 million votes. Chris Christie saying that that he wants to win, and Chris Christie saying that he's going to take out a guy that got more votes as president in his reelection campaign than any other president in the history of the United States, pretty much ends his entire proposition at the get-go. And that's a mistake. And so what will happen? Well, there'll be a lot of people that will believe that Chris Christie is the right guy. And that will take votes away from Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump the de facto leader of the Republican Party? Yes. Yes, he is. Does the Republican Party want to admit it? No. No, they don't. Therefore, they're distancing themselves from their own supporters. What does that do? Well, that leads to defeat. Is this some amazing revelation? No, it's basic, and they don't get it. More in a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Taking a look at the chat today. Let's see. Crazy, you share something from one platform and another and apparently go to Facebook jail. I don't know what that's all about. But once again, we know what the state of play when it comes to social media is. It's tiresome. Let's see. YouTube is up and running with the show, so apparently we're still on the air at YouTube. Don't know why it's a problem for you to get your chat across. That normally isn't a problem. I'll have to go and figure out what that is. But the amazing Gordian's knot that is navigating all of this is difficult to cut through. I'll just tell you that. Martha Brothers says, I vote for Republicans. Do you? Yeah, if they're the best candidate, I will. It was said by William F. Buckley, the late great American conservative, you vote for the most conservative person, the most conservative candidate who can win. Well, that has perpetuated itself into, once again, if you're a Republican voter, you vote for the Republican candidate that says the best stuff, but can't get any of it done. Because that's what the Republican Party does. Very much like what they're doing right now. A Republican heavyweight, no pun intended, no shot at Chris Christie. He's a big man. But not just physically. Chris Christie, throwing around things that he's going to defeat Donald Trump, alienates 74 million voters last time. Do you think the Republican Party might need those voters? They're going to have to deal with Donald Trump, and they're going to have to deal with Donald Trump not by standing up and saying, we're going to defeat him. He's the worst person on the face of the earth. You know, once again, we see an attempt to try to rein in federal law enforcement and Justice Department officials who play politics above all else, including the U.S. Code, the laws of the land, all while imperiously and demagoguing the idea that no one is above the law, well, except us. Well, this leads to dissolution and defeat. What is the Republican Party going to do without the voters who voted for Donald Trump? They're going to lose. Does the Republican Party need to lose this next election? Or do they need to win it? The circular firing squad idea, the ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, is a Republican hallmark. They outthink themselves. They overthink. What they need to do is make things simple, need to make things basic, and they need to follow through on what they say they're going to do. Do Republicans do that? Yes or no? Answer that in the privacy of your own mind, or share it with me on the chat room or on the telephone at 817-379-2172. What is it? What is it about these people? Why are they in this scenario? Martha says, I think Chris Christie is going to waste a lot of money. Okay. I really hate all the money wasted on political campaigns and garbage that comes through the mail. I watched Christie's announcement on CNN, not bad at all. Oh, there were good moments. I think his idea that America is smaller is right on point. There's no doubt about it. But America is smaller not because of Donald Trump. These same Republican candidates will tell you that Republican policies really made the nation much, much better. Well, whose policies were those? The Republican Party? No. It was Donald Trump's idea. He doesn't take credit that doesn't belong to him. He points to his achievements and stands for them. Let's see, Christie is there to be a thorn in Trump's side and the free food. That's mean. Mr. Love says, Trump lost. He lost the midterms. You should listen to Christie. Well, not so much. He didn't lose the midterms. Over 200 of his candidates won the races that he put them in. There were some high-profile losses, and so on. This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a moment. Thanks very much for being with us. We'll be back in a second. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes.
Hello.
You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is The Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. It's amazing. I want the Republicans to call out Biden on his problems and leave other Republicans alone. Yeah, what you want is you want the Republican Party to stop the circular firing squad. It was the 11th commandment, according to President Reagan. Do not talk ill of your fellow Republican candidates. And he didn't. This should be a competition of ideas, not a competition of personalities. Personality cults always fail. They always should. This is about the people of the United States, the hearts and minds of those people. And because of those hearts and minds, it's essential that they be serviced in a way and then allowed to make their decisions. And yes, there are certain mechanics involved in any election. One of those mechanics is, okay, you can split your vote in half or even more. I suspect that the 74 million people that voted for, of the 74 million people that voted for President Trump in 2020, probably 55 million will continue to vote for him or more, 50, 55, 56, somewhere in that vicinity. But can the Republicans win losing 55 or 56 million votes? The answer is no, they cannot. So why are they working so hard to lose? I'll make it simple. The Republican Party works so hard to lose because they're losers. That's right. They're simply losers. They ignore the people of the United States. The Democrat Party operates in spite of the people of the United States. The Republican Party simply ignores us. And they're doing it. They're doing it again. But as 2024 continues to shape itself into the campaign of craziness that we're about to see, the silly season, if you're a Formula One fan, then what we'll do here is we'll say that somebody else, very famous and very good, has decided to join the fray.
The land of opportunity, beacon of democracy, the shining city on the hill, land of the free, home of the brave, the United States of America. As a son of the heartland, grandson of an Irish immigrant, those aren't just words. My family has lived the American dream. I had the great honor to serve in Congress as governor and as your vice president. And I'll always be proud of the progress we made together for a stronger, more prosperous America. But today, our country's in a lot of trouble. President Joe Biden and the radical left have weakened America at home and abroad. The American dream is being crushed under runaway inflation. Wages are dropping. Recession is looming. Our southern border is under siege, and the enemies of freedom are on the march around the world. And worse still, timeless American values are under assault as never before. We're better than this. We can turn this country around, but different times call for different leadership. Today, our party and our country need a leader that'll appeal, as Lincoln said, to the better angels of our nature. I have long believed to whom much is given, much will be required. My family and I have been blessed beyond measure with opportunities to serve this nation, and it'd be easy to stay on the sidelines. But that's not how I was raised. That's why today, before God and my family, I'm announcing I'm running for President of the United States. We can bring this country back. We can defend our nation and secure our border. We can revive our economy and put our nation back on a path to a balanced budget, defend our liberties, and give America a new beginning for life. President Reagan described us as a shining city on the hill. And above all, he called on Americans to renew optimism and believe in themselves again, to believe in each other. Every time our nation has produced leadership that has called upon this country to do hard things, the American people have always risen to the challenge. And we will again. We just need government as good as our people to do it. I believe in the American people, and I have faith. God is not done with America yet. And together, we can bring this country back. And the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
And so there you have it. Mike Pence throwing his hat into the ring. A very, very good, stirring, inspiring video. I would have preferred a speech. But this is controllable. And these messages have to be very carefully controlled. Not so much that what we have to do is we have to essentially homogenize, pasteurize, make sure that everything is got your ducks in a row so that the people can figure out what's going on. But you have to reduce the things that people can attack you on, the homogenation process. the pasteurization process. President Trump has warts. I can't think of a single wart that Mike Pence has. Mike Pence is perhaps one of the best politicians I've ever seen. He is disciplined. He has good ideas. He expresses himself well. He made a mistake in the debate with Kamala Harris because he kept interrupting her. Why? Man, if I'm debating with Kamala Harris, do you know what I want to do more than anything else in the whole wide world? I want to shut up and let her talk. That's all I want to do. And every time she stops talking, I want to throw something else at her to talk about. And she'll defeat herself. Why didn't he do that? That was a rare misstep by Mike Pence. When your opponent is screwing up, don't interrupt him. Ever. But that's the only bad move I've seen from a political standpoint. Now, that comes back to something else that I discuss. Should another politician continue to lead this nation? A173792172. A173792172. Vote for Donald Trump. Don't vote for Donald Trump. Do whatever it is that you think is best. But Donald Trump did show you that there was another way to run this country. And when it came down to the things that truly mattered to we, the people of the United States, and the health of this nation, when it came down to those things, President Donald Trump did those things. Now, is this an unabashed endorsement of President Donald Trump? No. I've said from the beginning that I'm interested in voting for the best candidate. I'm interested in voting for the best person. Yes, I voted for President Trump twice. He was the best candidate twice. Will he be a third time? I don't know. Don't have any idea. He's older now. He may have lost a little bit on his fastball. He makes mistakes. He does self-aggrandize, and that's tiresome. He's not real disciplined when it comes to his message. But he's very, very good at running this nation. Can a politician run this nation as well as Donald Trump did? Based on what I've seen politicians running anything else, not so much. Not so much. Alicia Delosier says, after the last 2 years, I have trust issues. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. American government is untrustworthy. It's untrustworthy. That is the truth. It absolutely is. But Donald Trump is someone that possesses huge support among the people of the United States. Huge. And what we have to find now is whether or not the Republican Party wants to win or not. Will they change to suit a different paradigm? We should look after our own interests. It was called America First, and then immediately derided by all those people that, well, America doesn't need to be first. America's never been first, blah, 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 blah. All that garbage. It was garbage. We need to look after our own business. Do I believe that we should help struggling countries? Sure. Hang on a minute. Do I believe that we should, say, for example, in some measure, support Ukraine? Yeah. As long as we know that that is an effort worthy of our tax money. It's not our business. These are two factions of the former Soviet Union engaged in a civil war. Why are we playing around in it? We risk World War III by doing so. And so here we are with all these people playing all these politics, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, I believe that indeed we should support nations around the world right up to the point where they become more important than American interest. I don't believe the Third World War is one of those interests. And so, when you start thinking about America as an energy independent state, when you start thinking about just exactly what our government is doing. You know, for example, the very latest thing, it's on the front page of Fox News, is that after going after gas stoves, President Biden is now going to put out a statement to go after your home furnace because it burns natural gas. What are they doing? What are they doing? I don't know what they're doing, but it seems that when they start talking about what kind of furnace you have in your house, what kind of car you drive, what kind of light bulb you use, that's an overarching, oppressive, tyrannical government. And when you find yourself in a position where suddenly, for whatever reason, American executive orders can be defended and, oh, by the way, sustained as law by the Supreme Court of the United States, oops, there's a problem. Thank you, Chief Justice John Roberts. Sorry, sir. That was a dopey, foolish decision. Absolutely outrageous. But what has happened? Has the Congress voted on illegalizing or banning gas stoves? No. Will the Congress vote on, say, for example, getting rid of gas furnaces? Probably not. Probably not. So what will they do? What they'll do is they'll handle it through executive action, which is another reason why I keep telling you we have to make sure that everything an executive branch agency wants to do as a regulation is actually an American law. And that can only happen through the legislature or an administrative state oligarchy and a dictatorship in the Oval Office. Is that what you want? I don't believe so. Is that where we're headed? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we are. And the Republican Party wants to defeat the last person that had success in this nation as its president. The last one. Other presidents have had success too. I can't apply that to Joe Biden. He's not been a successful president. It's hurt us all. It truly has. And that's something that we all have to consider. All of us. Democrats are considering it. A sizable majority of Democrats don't want Joe Biden to run, but yet he's running. I just hope he gets through this term without turning the reins of leadership over to Kamala Harris. And I'm not sure that that's a lead pipe cinch. What I'm trying to figure out at this point is whether or not the Republican Party wants to lead. In order to do that, they're going to have to change themselves. They're going to have to reflect the new reality. The new reality is that both Republicans and Democrats, as political leaders of this nation, have made it worse, not better. It is time for a change. Is Chris Christie that guy? No. Is Mike Pence that guy? I don't know. I don't have any idea. Asa Hutchinson? No. Nikki Haley? I don't think so. Who is the person to lead this nation into what Mike Pence just said brilliantly, the best days ahead of us? Is it Mike Pence? His party talks a really, really good game. But do they win on game day? The answer is no. Time and time again. Just one man's opinion. That's why I'm talking on this camera. So, can Mike Pence win over voters? Or will he split the vote down so that Donald Trump loses? And gives us yet another way to have Democrat leadership in this nation, which has led us into a mess. Mr. Love, 825, said, Democrats are not coming for your guns, your stove, or your furnaces. I remember the death panels were a complete lie. Well, actually, they weren't. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. In the world of sports, the golf world is reeling from a surprise announcement yesterday from the PGA Tour and Live Golf. They've decided to merge. The deal was a shock to many, including this reporter, especially when you consider the food fight that's been going around in pro golf all this time. Not many of the key people involved in either league knew the deal was going to happen until it was announced. Maybe that's a harbinger of the fact that they're not key people. Little is known about what the merger will mean for the future of golf. Does it mean more lucrative purses for PGA Tour winners? I'm not sure. How could they be more lucrative? Seriously. Does it mean that that we're talking about a PGA Tour to shorten their tournaments from 72 holes to 54? Because that's what Live players do. Or if Live players are eligible for all PGA Tour events. Here's what's known about the deal so far, according to USA Today. The Public Investment Fund, the sovereign wealth investment fund of the Saudi government, will make a capital investment into the new entity to facilitate growth and success. The fund will also be the exclusive investor of the new entity. In other words, has the PGA sold itself to the Saudi Arabian government? Yasser Al Rumayyan, governor for the Public Investment Fund, will be a part of the newly formed board of directors. All outstanding litigation, including a lawsuit filed by a number of golfers who joined the LIV Tour, filed against the PGA Tour, will end. The two sides were in talks for the last 7 weeks, according to the Associated Press. PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan met with Al Rumiant. The meetings were arranged by PTA Tour board member Jimmy Dunn. Monahan realized LIV Golf had a deep well of funds, wasn't going anywhere. He says golf was too divided, had too much tension. It was best for everybody to come together. No one had word of this, said Monahan. Our players expect us to operate in the best interests of the tour. Instead, he cited guidance from corporate members of the PGA Tour board. Yeah, okay. Whatever. One of the main differences between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf is the 54-hole tournament. While the PGA Tour has not confirmed if any changes will be made to the tournaments, it's unlikely. The Tour said it retains administrative oversight of the events for those the assets contributed by the PGA Tour, including the sanctioning of events, the administration of the competition, and the rules. So what this will likely mean is that a whole bunch of people will be, golf pros, for example, will be flying all around the world for events all around the world. There will probably be fewer American events and more international ones. The DP World Tour is also a part of that. That's the European Golf Tour. And so we may be seeing a lot of pros start burning up lots and lots of money flying from event to event to event. Now, will that money come from the pockets of the players? That's the way it was with the PGA. Or will it come from the pockets of the tour? And that is a major change. Now, I'm okay with international events. I think that's fun. I think it's wonderful. I'm all for more people being involved in those tournaments than fewer. But there are an awful lot of guys that make a very, very nice living on the PGA Tour or as PGA professionals that are not going to be able to afford to fly to all these tournaments. And so the new tournament entity, whatever that's going to be called, probably be the PGA. That new tournament entity will very likely have to subsidize players. Well, okay, how do you gain that subsidy? That's going to change everything. Everything. So where do we stand? Where do we go from here? I don't know. We'll see. I know. You're sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to have answers? Well, sort of. The answers I have are basically more of a Zen thing than anything else, because I believe in watching and seeing what happens and then commenting from there. And I do. Now, I understand that people who play sports for a living do so based on the fact that they essentially make themselves their own corporations and they make their own way. And that touches me, and I think that's good. These are individualists. These are people who make their living based on their skills, something that I've done my entire career and hope to continue for a long time to come, by the way. So, I have no problem with any of this, and nothing is certain in the world except change. But I have seen Major League Baseball impale itself on politics and watch its fan base suffer. You know, what I'm interested in is, you know, when it comes to changes and when it comes to mergers and so on and so forth, since professional baseball, since Major League Baseball all follow the same rules, why is there a National League and an American League? Should it just be the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference? I mean, you know, I used to enjoy National League Baseball because there were strategies in the game that were essential, that required thought. Now all we're doing with baseball at this particular moment is waiting for the next home run. That gets old. I remember when I saw the first NBA player dunk the basketball. Now it happens by every NBA player. Is it that big a deal anymore? Nah. No, it's not. We'll see what happens with Live PGA until we see more. Well, we'll just let that one simmer. How about that? This has been the Wells Report. I sincerely appreciate your participation. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Well, okie dokie. Thanks very much for, I don't know what the sound situation is. Where were you watching? Were you watching on, let's see, Facebook? Where were you watching, Yvonne? Gary, were you having the same problem? So in other words, did we lose sound? I would like to know. I'd like to know about that. Thanks very much for everything. We'll figure it all out, and God bless.